Hey everybody, it's Lily, and in this video, I will be showing you 10 different tips to improve your drawing skills right now. Let's begin. Tip number 1, use references. I know you've probably heard this a million times, but it is really important. Here I am drawing an elephant without using a reference, and believe me, I was trying my best. I don't draw elephants often, so I don't have a super clear picture of how they look in my mind's eye, and so I just kind of went off of what I thought an elephant kind of looked like. And it ended up looking pretty bad. It looked very cartoony, and I mean, that kind of makes sense. If you don't have the details in the drawing, it's going to look simplified and more like a cartoon. But even this one for a cartoon just looked a little bit off, and I think it was the proportions were just very bizarre. I completely messed up some of the areas like the tusks. I didn't account for the bit of skin that is like around the top of them. I made the feet and the legs way too simplified, just like straight down, when there's actually, some curve to them because they have knees and stuff. Who would have thought? Elephants have joints. I added a tail, and in this kind of a pose, you actually wouldn't see an elephant's tail because it's so small. And so this drawing without the reference turned out to just be a little bit janky. Then I used a reference to actually draw an elephant, and the reference helped me an incredible amount. I got to see all of the different details that I missed. I got to be able to measure the proportions of the elephant. I got to look at the negative spaces so I could get the placement of the body parts down pretty good. I was able to see the different folds in the skin and the texture and yeah, just how an elephant carries its weight and what it actually looks like. And so I think this comparison of using no reference to using a reference, I think that this pretty much sells you on how important references are. I feel like a lot of people don't use references because they think it's cheating or they want to have full creative control of their drawings. And my argument against that is that if you want your drawing to accurately look like what you're trying to represent, it's very important to see the details, and you can combine different references to make something completely unique and creative. Tip number 2, when drawing from life, look, don't assume. You should be looking at the reference more than you're drawing, and you shouldn't be making any assumptions that you know how it already looks. Our brains like to simplify objects quite a bit in our memory, and so really taking a look at the actual subject matter is super important. Assume that you know nothing about what you're drawing and you're just simply drawing what you're seeing. Here I drew an apple straight from memory, and I was just drawing away, drawing what I assumed an apple to look like, and then here I drew an actual apple from life, and the apple I've noticed has a lot more texture, and it is way more spherical than I assume apples look like, apparently. When drawing from life, you should be looking at the object at least 50% of the time. Tip number 3, measure using your pencil. Check proportions of the drawing using your pencil and carry this into your drawing. Start with a part of the drawing, measure it, and use this measurement to measure other parts of the drawing. You can use your pencil to measure like this. Measuring the proportions of your drawing is very important. If you want your drawing to look more realistic, you want to have accurate proportions to real life. Tip number 4, look at negative spaces. The area you don't draw on is just as important as the area you do draw on. Look at the shapes and sizes of the negative space in the reference and compare it to your drawing. Paying attention to negative spaces helps you accurately draw correct proportions of your subject. Tip number 5, use longer strokes. So one thing I've noticed, a lot of beginner artists use shorter strokes when they're drawing. And shorter strokes, it's good for texture and other things like that, but for drawing the outline of any object, it makes the object look very stiff, and using longer strokes help loosen up the arm and help you get some more gestural movements. I noticed when I was doing this drawing with the shorter strokes, I had a really hard time getting the proportions right because it took me so long to do one of the petals. Using the longer, looser strokes, you can get more of a feeling for the entire drawing as a whole instead of just focusing on one certain area. So in the second drawing, I used the longer strokes, and I think it just makes this pansy look that much more unified. Tip number 6, blending. So I think that blending is one of the most important things when drawing with graphite, especially. You can blend with anything. You can blend with your finger. You can use blending stumps. Those are one of my favorite things to blend with. You can also use a chamois, which is like a certain type of fabric that's very good at blending graphite. And the reason why blending is such an important thing when you're drawing is to make the object look more three-dimensional and to even out larger areas of tone. It creates a soft effect and makes your drawing look more 3D. And so if you don't blend, I'd give it a try. Tip number 7, push the contrast. This is also another thing I see beginners maybe not pushing so far is contrast. They are afraid to commit to the pencil and they draw very lightly and faintly. And I think that it is super important to really push the darks pretty much as far as they can go. So the really dark areas in the reference that you're looking at, try to make them just as dark. A good test to see if your drawing is dark enough is the squint test. Try squinting your eyes, and if your drawing pretty much disappears and you can't see any real parts of it, you probably need to push some of that contrast. If you haven't looked into different pencil leads, I would do that. Graphite comes in different hardnesses, and the B leads, B, just regular B all the way up to like 8B, it progressively gets softer and softer, so you can get darker tones. And for this drawing, I used a 4B pencil, and you can see just how much darker it is than the regular number 2 pencil I was using. Tip number 8, use your whole body to draw. Try standing up when you're drawing. Try using your entire arm, not just your wrist. Loosen up and really get involved with your art. So I started off this drawing by using just my wrist and in a sitting position just to see how difficult it would be to draw, because normally I do add a lot of arm movement into it, and it was very difficult. Again, it just made it look stiff, and my hand was only able to reach so far, and so I'd have to move my hand around a lot. And then I tried drawing standing up, trying to use my entire arm so I could do more gestural kind of motions. And I feel like this type of drawing is way more natural, and the drawing just comes together a lot more cohesively. Using your whole arm really helps add some flow, and yeah, it makes drawing easier. What more can I say than that? Tip number 9, take a step back. When I get stumped when I'm making art, I feel like the best thing to do is to grab my piece of art or my painting or my drawing or whatever I'm doing, put it against the wall and to take a step back. You know, like go back about 20 feet and take a look at it and see what's working and what's not working. It's a lot easier to see the problems from a distance, like if you need more contrast or if something looks off. It's easier to see what to change from a distance. I would also encourage you, if you just can't figure out what's going wrong, to take a break, put away your drawing, and come back to it after you've had a break and your eyes are fresh, and you should be able to see a couple places that you could improve. And the final tip is practice. And I know you're probably sick of hearing this by now, but practice really is key. Just look at all these faces I drew. By the 5th face, you can actually see a big difference. And when you are practicing, try not to become too attached or focused on one drawing. If something just isn't working out, it's totally fine. Leave it be and start a new one. And all of these tips and rules in art, of course there are going to be times where maybe doing it a different way would just, work for your art better. These are just some tips that helped me get a little bit better at realism, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Check out my social media and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great week. Bye!